Everyone, you may have noticed that Bitcoin is around $95,000 per coin, maybe $96,000 per coin. And you may be thinking, hey, that's great. I mean, that is like way up from a few months ago, but it's technically down since Inauguration Day, which is January 20th, when the Trump administration took over. So why are we sort of chilling around here at $95,000 when, we used to be a little higher a few weeks ago? And what's going on? So I will answer that in 1 second. Okay, so here's what's happening. Um, First of all, anytime the price seems stuck of any asset, it's because there is roughly the same number of buyers and sellers at that price. And there's not a catalyst, meaning a cause, meaning a trigger for the price to move one direction or the other. So on Inauguration Day, on January 20th, there was a lot of euphoria of people who thought that Trump was going to create a strategic Bitcoin reserve and start, buying vast quantities of Bitcoin literally the next day for the U.S. Treasury. First of all, that was not going to happen. There was just no way that was going to happen. We did get an executive order that created a task force that looks at creating a strategic, digital asset stockpile and all that sort of stuff. It's chaired by all the right people. We've got all the right political appointees with David Sachs and the guy that's head of commerce, and obviously Cynthia Lummis in the Senate leading the subcommittee on digital assets in the Senate. So all the stars are aligned, but the reason the price is not higher is because some of that euphoria ran into the wall of reality, which is that it takes a little time to get stuff done in Washington, D.C., which should have been obvious to anyone who's ever interacted with politics ever at all. So it's taking a little bit of time. So because it's taking time, anytime there's not something new and exciting happening with any asset class, especially a high growth asset class, people get bored. And when they get bored, they start looking for something more exciting, which means some people are selling at this price, looking for something more exciting to invest in that's give them a rush on a day-to-day basis. Well, obviously Bitcoin is an incredible long-term investment, but it's not a meme stock. It's not a meme coin. It's not something ridiculous that, shoots up 1,000% in a day, but then goes to zero. It's just not that. It's not a casino. It's an actual investment asset. So as a result of that, it takes a little time to get everything just right in the administration. Plus, Bitcoin does not need the Trump administration or any other administration. Bitcoin had huge gains under Barack Obama, under Donald Trump, under Joe Biden, and will again under Donald Trump. So it's not like how fast the United States creates a Bitcoin strategic reserve has any bearing on whether Bitcoin wins in the long term. Okay, so what's happening behind the scenes? A very interesting thing is happening behind the scenes while we chill out here in the mid 90,000s, which is there is a significant amount of trading activity between people who have held Bitcoin for a very long time and people who are buying Bitcoin for the first time. So when the price seems stuck at 95,500 or whatever it is at this exact moment, it feels like nothing's happening, but that's not what's happening. What's actually happening is people who have held Bitcoin for 10 years or 12 years, or basically an amount of time significantly longer than someone like me who bought their first Bitcoin in 2017. Those people are deciding, you know what? We've been chilling at this price level for a while. Time to build an expansion on my house. Time to buy a Tesla. Time to go on an expensive vacation. Time to do whatever it is. And so you're seeing a lot of people that are deeply in profit on their Bitcoin that are selling, that are deciding to peel off a little bit of that Bitcoin and sell it into the marketplace. Now, the amazing thing is that selling activity is not pushing the price lower than the ballpark of $95,000. And that's because there is a constant bid of people wanting to buy Bitcoin. So we saw this last year for about 7 months between March and October, where the price seemed stuck between $55,000 and $70,000, and it just seemed stuck there for a long time and obviously even that was significantly up from January 1st of the year. I think in January 1st of 2024, it was in the 30,000 somewhere. So once it jumped from the beginning of the year into March, from the 30,000s into the 50,000s, we got stuck in the 50,000s, 50s and 60s, high 50s, yeah, and 60,000s for like 7 months. But again, during that time, there was a huge amount of turnover in Bitcoin, meaning there were a lot of people that had decided, hey, at a price above $50,000, they want to, diversify a little bit. These are people that are very early Bitcoin holders. And obviously that's going to happen over time. And one day that'll be you. And it'll be people like me, right? Because at some point, the Bitcoin you buy today is going to have 5x or 10x in value. And even the people today who are buying Bitcoin today saying, I'm never going to sell it. Well, once their Bitcoin that they bought today is worth 5 times or 10 times the price they paid for it today, they might decide to live a little, to do something nice for their family, to do something nice for themselves, to upgrade their lifestyle in some way. So during that 7 months, there was a significant, sort of turnover in in sort of who the holders of Bitcoin were. Bitcoin was working its way out into the world farther and farther and farther, and more of Bitcoin was held by new holders who planned to hold it for a much longer time, as opposed to very old holders who were significantly in profit and deciding at what point they wanted to take some chips off the table, as they say in the world of investing. Um, so that is happening right now for the last few months. We've been mostly between $95,000 and $105,000. But if you look under the hood, there is a lot of activity happening of new buyers coming into the market and old buyers taking some of their chips off the table by converting some of their Bitcoin into, things they want to buy, ways that they want to improve the life of themselves and their family. And when all that's happened, they may be living in a new, larger house that's a better fit for their family, and someone else owns some of the Bitcoin. And obviously, you want the Bitcoin to distribute around the world, and the only way it distributes around the world is when people sell it, because otherwise, it can't get into the hands of new Bitcoin users. So, what will happen? Well, my prediction is that the same thing that happened last year will happen this year, which is at some point, that rotation of coins will end because the people who have owned Bitcoin for 10 or 12 or 14 years and and they're excuse me, and therefore want to take some chips off the table, they will have finished doing that, but there will still be new people who want Bitcoin. And so just like last year when the price finally rocketed from 60, let's call it $65,000 to $95,000, which is a huge leap, the same thing will happen here. Eventually we will run out of people that are willing to sell their Bitcoin at these prices. And as long as they are still new entrants in the market wanting to buy Bitcoin for the first time, or existing people like me in the market wanting more Bitcoin than I have right now, eventually we will run out of those people who are selling Bitcoin, and the people who are still buying Bitcoin will still be there, at which point the price will once again adjust to a significantly higher level. Or there will be a new catalyst. Well, one, that's going to happen. What I've just described is going to happen, no matter what. But in addition to that, at some point, we will get a new catalyst, a new trigger, a new something, such as the United States will actually create a strategic Bitcoin reserve. Or the US government will actually start buying more Bitcoin instead of just holding the Bitcoin that they already own. Um, so some catalyst will trigger it, or there will be instability in the financial system that freaks everyone out and makes them want to hold an asset that is a lot more stable and a lot more secure and doesn't lose value like the US dollar. But whatever it is, maybe it's a company like Facebook suddenly acquiring Bitcoin. Maybe it's, the Trump administration, the executive order or the digital assets subcommittee coming out with recommendations, or Congress passing laws. Whatever it is, there will be a trigger that results in a significant change in the price of Bitcoin. I think the greater probability is that it's a positive trigger, and that results in an uptick in the price of Bitcoin. There's also a chance along the way that we'll get a negative trigger that results in people freaking out temporarily and selling Bitcoin. We don't know. But in the long term, which is all that matters. All that matters is in the long term, Bitcoin will be much higher than it is now, and everything is on track for that to happen. So my advice stays the same, even though this is not tax advice, not legal advice, not accounting advice, et cetera, et cetera. Nothing I ever post or ever say is advice of any of those kinds. The thing to do, if I were you, is buy as much Bitcoin as you can and hold on to it for as long as possible. Same advice as always, which is keep it simple. Get your hands on as much Bitcoin as you can possibly afford and hold on to it as long as conceivably possible. That is the strategy that has won for the last 16 years. The last 16 years since Bitcoin was launched in January of 2009, the strategy that has always worked is buy as much Bitcoin as you can and hold on to it for as long as conceivably possible. That has always been good advice and will continue to always be good advice. So, in the meantime, the Bitcoin will continue to rotate from people that have been in Bitcoin for a long time to people who are buying it for the first time while we wait for a big catalyst to start the next significant price rise on Bitcoin. And in the meantime, it will behave like every other asset. Every other asset, including the highest performing assets like Tesla or Amazon or Apple, Google, Netflix, Nvidia, Microsoft, all of the highest performing assets behave just like this. They go for very long periods of time, months or sometimes years, where the price seems like it's stuck. And behind the scenes, the people who hold that stock are rotating. They're rotating from people who don't want to hold it at this price or are willing to part with some of their stock at this price to people who are wanting to buy this asset or part with this asset at this price. For people who want to sell or part with it to people who want to buy and hold at this price. And that is healthy. That is what happens with every asset. So anyway, my advice remains the same. Hopefully this highlight helps. Thanks.